alongside Kobe and Vedius. Gentlemen, I am ready.
So am I, Flowers. Vedius, I feel like we should hug. You know, after the analyst desk was getting so violent, you know.
We'll be brothers till the end.
Exactly.
We'll be brothers till the end.
Let's have a good, clean game here.
Good, clean game.
No blood on the rift, you know.
Oh, no, I
Everybody.
want loads of blood on the rift.
Let's go.
We on the desk is going to stay civil, though, as we get ready to jump into draft. Thick and fast, already TF taken off the board. So many questions around what the priority is going to be in this draft. We were talking about the jungle priority especially. How high up is the Maokai? What about the Xinjiao? What about the Vi? Where do these all fall for these two junglers?
Exactly, because, you know, G2, in their game that they did win versus Gen G, that Yone right there, that was a part of it, along with the Maokai that you mentioned, that kind of tied it all together. That, like, long-range engage used so much space and really made their team fight better, so FlyQuest targeting that early on in the bans.
Caps, the greatest Western player of all time here in League of Legends, targeted in the bans for a reason here. All three first phase bans from FlyQuest, the TF, the Yone, the Azir. The common denominator is Caps. On the other side, Talia taken off the table by G2 alongside that Rumble. We know Broken Blade doesn't really play this champion. Whippo does. They'll remove that one considering it is a power pick here in game number 1 as the timer runs out. What is G2's final ban on this red side? The Renekton as first pick goes over to FlyQuest.
A lot of power picks available. I mean, the question is, what's the priority going to be? Is it that jungle role with the Xin, the Vi, all these high pick value junglers available, along with the Annie? We've seen be a very contested mid lane champion in the current meta, and it feels like that it's a pretty safe blind in the mid lane meta right now.
And I wonder, with the possibilities, will you just go for power picks like the Varus here? Okay, instantly do. But the other possibilities, in Fearless in a full best of 5, if you wanted to steal away early on the Maokai or something like that and play it, then it would remain Fearless banned. But that's not going to be the opportunity here. They just go with the straightforward FlyQuest, immediately getting the power pick of the current meta for Masu here, the Canadian on the team, and that is going to allow that Maokai again that has been so good for G2.
And the Varus for Masu, somebody who has stepped up time and time again for FlyQuest. You remember back to Worlds last year when they impressed everyone, taking Gen G to 5 games. Masu, a massive performer there, giving him a champ like this. Really good for FlyQuest. But over on the other side, Skewmond on Maokai. G2 is ferocious with this pick in the jungle. They play so well around the objectives with it. Not surprised at all to see them lock that in first rotation game 1 as the Rise is the next lock for FlyQuest.
The Rise blind is a little surprising, and I just want to give you guys a bit of a throwback. Caps is no stranger to the Anivia matchup. He is a fan of it, and he knows it's a good pick into the Rise. Whether it's a good pick in this composition is still a big question mark, but FlyQuest already setting their sights on potentially attacking the side lanes by locking in the Pantheon, pairing it alongside the Rise, very much about attacking the rest of the map.
Exactly, that's what I was going to go for immediately, looking to play the sides there, looking to split push for later on. But also, early proactive plays really have been successful there, especially if you can go towards the bottom side of the map. But G2, what are we going to grab here? You would assume they're going to get Caps' answer now so it doesn't get banned out. You mentioned the Anivia, and you know, things like Cassio are fairly popular into it, but they opt to go for that primary support, the Alistar here. So versatile.
It is a comfort pick for Labrov. It provides very strong engage, and they can also ban things like the Braum, potentially the Rakan, things that could be good matchups. Maybe they want to take away some of the engage options on the bot side of the map as well. Rel could very well be high up on the priority list, but the support pool likely going to be pinched for Busio.
Busio, I would also say, is the second best Alistar in North America. Only Vulcan on C9 I would rate higher. So locking in the Alistar, not just for Labrov, a good denial against Busio too, as Rakan will be the first ban here in the second half from G2, taking away one of those potential big team fight engage options from the side of FlyQuest, who right now, yeah, you have the ability to make picks with a Rune Prison or a Pantheon engage with the Grand Starfall. You have Varus for a pick with Chain of Corruption, but FlyQuest is missing a big go button so far.
Exactly, and those two pieces are definitely going to come with either the top lane pick here or that support pick, you know, like Nautilus or something like that could go through for Busio, and they could have Whippo just blind pick his tank for the top side of the map, unless G2 for some reason wanted to go for top lane Broken Blade at the moment. But I think that would be kind of crazy considering
a little wild.
They could just throw down Caps' pick immediately.
Yeah, mean, things like the Jace is still open. We don't expect that to be a high priority pick for really either of these top laners, but it's always a possibility. With the Rumble taken away and the Renekton gone as well, things like Sion massively raised in value as a safe blind top pick.
Exactly. With this Gwen ban here, they are for sure setting up for some sort of tank for Blippo on the top.
As a possibility as well.
Definitely true.
Well, there is that Braum ban to come through from the side of G2, so very much targeting two of the good matchups into the Alistar specifically. The Corki ban to remove some of the AD mid possibilities. Tristana is a long-time favorite for Caps that he's played many times alongside this Maokai. Whether he decides to go for an AD mid is still up for debate. We'll see what direction he decides to go, as we are very much expecting that mid laner to come through now for G2.
All right, G2, what will you cook
that smile
against
is a dangerous
the Rise?
smile.
Yeah,
They're laughing about something over there.
He looks like he's got something planned. Will we actually see this locked in? I'm not going to believe it till it happens.
Cassio.
No, the Cassiopeia counterpick. So this is big. Not only is this a counterpick traditionally into the Rise, this is the pocket pick against Quad that we see teams ban all the time. G2 is not only picking a good champion for the occasion, but they're alleviating Fearless ban pressure for the rest of the series.
Exactly. Get this thing out of there for the whole series afterwards. Now, we're looking at like the Nautilus style, you know, because we are thinking more engage here for Busio on the bottom side of the map. But okay, they're going to go for double poke for a really strong lane here, trying to abuse this Alistar early on. The Karma plus the Varus can be very oppressive.
I mean, I like the strategy. Marsu, I think, has been a standout performer on the side of FlyQuest. Why not play more towards his lane? With strong poke and an effective diver in the form of Pantheon, FlyQuest are definitely setting up for a bot side focus type of early game.
All right, Bwippo, what's it going to be? Is it going to be a Sion or Ornn type of game? Or are they going to go crazy in game number one? All right, we're not going too crazy here. We get our front line. And Sion, with the ultimate, has so much flexibility here to get around the map. When we're going back to the early picks of this draft, and we're talking about the Rise and the Pantheon, trying to play those side lanes, Sion here will be a very strong piece.
Yeah, and that does mean that FlyQuest is going to need to find the angles for the Sion, for the Pantheon. Again, this is not the guaranteed go button since the Sion ulti has so much telegraph to it. On the other side, though, G2, they're going to get their counter pick in the top side. It'll be Broken Blade on the Aatrox to deal with Bwippo's Sion. So now the drafts are done. The dust is settled. I got to ask you, gentlemen, the question I ask every time. Which side of the draft do you feel has the edge?
NA, baby! Let's go, FlyQuest! Honestly, though, okay, something I am worried about is, you know, Pantheon can sometimes have a hard time with Cassio because the grounding from Miasma also can kind of mess up his ganks. But Inspired is very good about finding some angles. And of course, once he gets to his ultimate, then you get a lot more options for plays.
So on paper, the reason why I prefer G2's comp is that I feel that these teams just group and fight a lot. I don't trust their ability to effectively play through the sides, and I think that a lot of responsibility is on Quad and Inspired to make magic happen on these side lanes. And I'm worried that they're just going to get sucked into the team fights, which in a straight up front to back, Cassio Jhin with a Maokai Alistar, that is just a very easy front to back style of comp to play.
I also really like the Cassiopeia here for G2, not just, again, because of the reasons that I already stated, but when you have Jhin, you can feel like a little bit of that DPS is missing for things like the later objective takes. You can feel like for getting into the meatball health bar on something like a Sion, it's a little bit tougher. Cassiopeia helps make up for that.
Exactly. That's why you want to pair it with some of those DPS mid laners like Cassio, like the Azir. So it's going to be a fun one. I mean, bottom lane, we've got the Poke Varus here with the Comet, so is going to be the Lethality Varus version versus Jhin. Lots of utility down on the bottom side, but we have to expect FlyQuest will be pushing early, so when you draft something like that, we'll see if Inspired can path down towards that bottom side to play around that pushing lane too. Look for the Scuttle Crabs.
Inspired already setting out to get some early information as to where Skewmond is starting in this early game. It's a tense moment because, as you guys recognize, it's not been very EU favored in recent history. I know a lot of the EU fans back home are stressed coming into this best of five.
Hey, so are we.
We only have to think back to last year, Team Liquid versus Fnatic. I remember many thinking that Fnatic was favored going into that matchup, and then TL got a very convincing victory.
So while we're starting with the graphic though, Vedius,
Yeah.
part of the reason why North American fans have a lot of trauma built up is because over the years, it started out with so many EU wins.
It certainly did, but in recent history, it definitely feels like that the momentum has shifted towards North America. And what I love about that is it has given birth to the rivalry between the two regions. It does feel like that we are fighting for supremacy in the West, as Inspired has made the first play of the game. Looking for an invade, he is spotted on vision though.
Exactly, and it is playing off the draft that they went for, so you know your setup is going to allow for this. It is causing Labrov here to go back and answer because of that ward that you mentioned. They're kind of expecting it and looking for it, and so he's just going to take the blue buff. Nothing more as of now.
So easy to play around that bottom side jungle for Inspired with the control over the bottom lane that the Varus and the Karma have.
Now I want to see what his sort of plan is about covering back the other side to really cut off options for Maokai, because Skumon right now, with his full red quadrant done, is going to be heading over to try and get back part of Inspired's jungle.
There was a ping onto their side of the map, so there's some level of expectation that Skumon recognizes that this has occurred. Caps going for a nice trade in the mid lane. I thought that the Sion would actually move with his priority top to actually check on the bot side jungle, but he recognizes that this could be quite dangerous. You know, with Broken Blade in a position to follow up, and with a Maokai there, he could end up just putting himself in a life-threatening position.
Yeah, so the jungle is even. It's just blue buff stolen for blue buff stolen. A similar amount of timing there as well. And Skumon's full red quadrant actually is going to respawn a little bit quicker since he just did his red quadrant. And so his Krugs actually are going to be a little bit quicker to respawn for second one, whereas Inspired is going to be desynced since he started his Raptors. So he will have the regular like 4-minute respawn for those, but Krugs will be a little delayed.
No ganks yet from either side, though, considering we just have had these trades of the blue buffs. But both junglers are now back on the bottom side of the map as Hans and Labrov are still stuck underneath that tier 1 turret. Again, we mentioned in draft, when you draft the Karma next to something like the Varus, you are going for this lane supremacy. You're going for the range and the poke, and it means that FlyQuest have control over the bottom lane.
I like Inspired's pathing here. I was worried after he pathed back towards the top side of the map that he was just abandoning the bot side scuttle, but he decided to just backtrack towards this area of the map. He knows that he has the push in bot. It's very difficult for Skumon to really contest that, and so instead he's going to be forced up towards the top side as the second respawn of the Raptors comes through.
Yeah, he's planned it out really nicely here, so he can just go from that bottom Scuttle Crab over to his second respawn of Raptors we were talking about for the 4 minutes, and Skumon as well reacting accordingly and going for that top one as you mentioned. It's very interesting because even though Skumon still is a rookie, Inspired gave an interview back in April, as we see the lane swap coming back out here and Masu heading up. But Inspired actually gave an interview in LCS profiles all the way back in April with a lot of respect for Skumon. And at that time, he did consider him and Skumon's, you know, the kind of the best junglers in EU and NA. And so definitely a lot of respect there between these two.
I like what the bot lane of G2 did in this play. They actually reset onto the map through mid lane. They wanted to wait and see where Masu and Busio appeared on the map. They saw them top, and so they transitioned from mid into top to be able to match. So the swap won't come through, and Broken Blade will continue to play into the Bwipo matchup.
Nice spacing there from Quad in mid lane on that rotation of spells. Didn't get hit by anything that Caps could fire back and still got some good chunks as both mid laners are still dead even on farm. Top lane is an advantage for Broken Blade, but the wave is crashing into the turret, so should be a little bit of catch-up opportunity there for Bwipo as Masu and Busio also crashing a large wave into the turret that should alleviate some of this CS lead that Masu and Busio have built up over Hans and Labrov for now. Nobody looking at the Drake super early here, but you can see that G2 do have a control ward down in that pit, so not probably going to be a bunch of focus there, especially considering it's mountain. That Drake does take a lot longer to get than some of the other ones, and both of our top laners now set up here in the bottom side as Bwipo hits level 6. Do want to keep an eye on this guy, where he decides to go with those ultis. We know that Bwipo likes to get involved in the fights whenever he can.
Certainly does. I really like the respect that Quad is showing there, knowing that Broken Blade was missing on the map, positioning nicely in the lane to avoid any potential collapse from the bot side and playing through his vision. Both junglers continuing to just clear through their respective jungles and continue to ramp up, getting closer to that level 6 mark, which is where I expect Inspire to start making magic happen on the map.
Okay, so you can see on the scoreboard right now, Quad just used his ulti for tempo to get back to lane slightly faster. That tells me that FlyQuest is not expecting any sort of big neutral objective play to happen yet, where they would need the Realm Warp.
Yeah, and they actually used that tempo to go for this ward right there in the brush that leads up to Dragon. They had multiple pings to go for that timing on pushing mid wave that quickly. And that vision is going to see Skewmon move over, so not too much as of yet, but it's a little bit of a roam timer there for Busio.
Okay, Inspired walks through mid, heads back up towards that top side river. You see the push in favor of FlyQuest in the top lane there for Bwipo's Scion. Considering there's push in mid and top, Inspired should have no problem securing this next Scuttle Crab. There's still 60 seconds until the Void Grubs spawn, however, so it's not like this is going to lead into an immediate neutral objective take. And when you look at the cooldown on Quad's Realm Warp, right around the time the Grubs spawn, it should be a little bit after that the Realm Warp comes back up, but it will mostly line up if FlyQuest wants to try to make a play around those.
There was a pocket of darkness there that our observers were showing us where Labrov could have considered flashing in, looking for a play on the quad. He doesn't make it, but FlyQuest being super proactive with their swaps on the map right now. It's allowed Bwipo to get a small advantage, but credit to G2, they're matching it with a good amount of time in response well.
Yeah, and a lot of these both side lane CS advantages for FlyQuest are because of the bottom lane, you know, Varus and Karma pushing in first, so then they get the early move, so they're the ones constantly dictating, and so they're swapping over first, so they get these CS leads for both their Varus as well as for Bwipo getting a little benefit for himself too. So nicely utilized as far as the double range bottom lane there and the poke that we were kind of expecting to come through, and now they rotate him on up into the mid lane.
Void Grubs spawned, and still, we're not seeing a whole lot of aggression out of either side.
And honestly, we're not going to Flowers because they rotated already, as we say, their duo into mid lane, so that's going to provide the support so they can focus on the Grubs. And FlyQuest, the reason they're opting for the Grubs instead of Dragon, obviously is because they have the split push capabilities in their draft. They want that Grub power for the Rise, for the Scion, for the Pantheon to be able to really put some pressure on the map. And G2, the appropriate response, they will take their Dragon.
Cross map is solid, but a very slow and controlled game with FlyQuest amassing an advantage, largely thanks to their map movements and the lane advantages that they've been able to accrue. I don't think G2 is upset with their positioning right now. When you run a Cassio, you're more than happy to scale through the early game. You can see the kind of rower tier build that is very conventional on the Cassio is continuing to ramp up. Maokai choosing to go for the AP build based on the itemization that we can see, but Broken Blade also looking to ramp up, get a few more items under his belt. I think G2 is more than happy to play the slow game for now.
Yeah, both of these mid laners are going to become pretty durable as the game goes on with those Rod of Ages into the Seraph's Embrace builds like you're talking about, Vedius. You can see they're both sitting on Catalyst, both with about a half charge tier, a little bit under that so far. Masu also working on getting his tier stacking nice and early on this Lethality Varus, who does have the largest individual farm lead in the game of about 2.5 waves.
And he's got good matchups everywhere because Cassio's weakness is usually longer range, and so that's why FlyQuest are super happy to have Masu here in mid lane. You can constantly throw out the poke, constantly get pushed on these waves, and why these wards around mid lane are incredibly important for FlyQuest, you know, keeping that vision active for themselves so that he can continue to get that prio.
Very good coverage, keeping Masu very healthy. Ulti sidestepped by Caps.
Nice. Side slithered.
Side slithered
yeah,
indeed.
No boot, no feet, no boots, no steps.
Yeah, what the heck? No boots? Oh my.
But he avoids it, and that's what's important. Caps making sure that he doesn't get caught out there. Likely would have had to force a flash as the reaction afterwards if that did connect, but Caps will not be caught unawares like that. Does eat another piercing arrow, however. The Cassiopeia down to half HP. FlyQuest still maintains control over the top side river. That'll be another Scuttle Crab going over to Inspired. Jungle, really the only place where FlyQuest does not have a moderate lead in terms of individual gold between the rolls, as Bwipo, again, just trying to get the top lane wave shoved up underneath that turret. Knock-up for knock-up between these two. Broken Blade does get the pull in on the Infernal Chains, but Bwipo, with another nice use of the Decimating Smash, knows the very edges of that hitbox, which are a little bit dishonest, a little larger than they look like they should be, and Bwipo's making sure he's always getting the max channel on those.
Yeah, and Bwipo, even with the Aatrox getting the healing buffs, you know, on the recent patch, he rushed into the Bramble Vest to try and cut down on that a little bit.
We all saw the -1 Broken Blade. We just got to call it out loud. Rip. It happens.
Chat has you covered with those, okay? So we don't have to do it. I'm sure they were instantly on it. Thank you, chat. Thank you.
Observers keeping us honest as well. But yeah, it's kind of, we're waiting for that next neutral objective to spawn. 2 minutes until the next Cloud Dragon. So far, both teams kind of on pace towards that first item, with the rowers being completed already for Caps. And Quad likely to follow him very shortly. Marsu and Busio with good coverage over the mid lane, with Labrov looking to match both supports at level 6 at a healthy time, which is often rare in League of Legends these days.
Yeah, the Rod of Ages being completed earlier for Caps, I feel like this is one of those items that's especially valued to have online just a little bit earlier, because you'll hit that fully completed point just a little bit earlier, and if you can time your fights right, it could be a big difference. Worth noting, both of the junglers are the other two players on the Rift right now with those fully completed big items, Sundered Sky and the Leandries for the damage, Maokai. Masu also with his first fully completed item, which is at a cheaper price point with the Umbral Glaive, but it's a nice power spike if they do want to fight here 90 seconds from now for that dragon that you're talking about, Vedius.
Yeah, and I just want to take a moment to thank the analyst desk for providing the action at the beginning of the day, because we've had a very calm beginning to this series, but at least we got to see Raz popping off. And
I like to think that for both sides, like there's a lot on the line, right? You're representing the regions, and so game one, you take very tense. I believe that as the series continues, the action will definitely start to ramp up. They've just got to get the nerves out of the way. They've got to get comfortable on stage. Ooh, the ulti.
Yeah, Inspire's ready to come in, but a beautiful ulti coming out from Caps right into the miasma to follow, to guarantee that Inspired cannot use the stun to follow it up. Caps expertly navigating the situation to make sure that he doesn't drop there. Nicely played.
Yeah, I think it is good from both sides. It was a good call for FlyQuest to try and utilize this Pantheon ult now and go for the play, but also a very good response from Caps. And so it does result in his flash being exchanged, which is going to be a super long cooldown, and the dragon is coming up very shortly. So the Cassio is going to have to be very cognizant of positioning if they actually decide to go bring their team fight to the table.
So this is just a nice trade from Quad. The ultimate comes through for the Pantheon. Not a huge amount to break down here, just the timing was very nice from the Cassio. And of course, the stun duration, just that little bit lower, allowing for Caps to then flash away to safety. And he did need to flash, otherwise the potential follow-through from Quad was lethal.
Yep, also worth pointing out, because of the fact that the dragon is spawning right now, you can see there's still about half of that timer on the ultimate for Caps, alongside that super long flash cooldown you guys are already talking about. So if G2 want to fight Masu, though, nice flash in response. Labrov wanted to go for the flash pulverize, then get the headbutt backwards, but it doesn't work out. Now Busio sees Broken Blade coming in for the flank, but he roots him up defensively. FlyQuest bringing in the backup. Mantra Q hits Broken Blade and Labrov. Broken Blade here on the very front line. Decimate's not going to find him. Caps and Labrov putting a little bit of damage into Quad. They're going to catch him out on the very side of the fight. Miasma to lock him up, but he flashes away. Now Skirmish ready to come in here with a Nature's Grasp. G2, beautiful start to the fight as Bwipo tries to get away, but it's first blood over to Han Sama. Quad very low as he tries to escape, and G2 get a one for nothing.
G2 draw them in. FlyQuest trying to go around this wall here. Bwipo wanted to cut off the Cassio that had no flash, but G2 was right there, Vedius, and so they blast him down, and they're going to be able to take this dragon, unless Masu can snipe it.
Let's see, doesn't look like there's any chance of it. Not gonna happen. I said as soon as we saw it in the draft, G2 Maokai, they play so well around neutral objectives and river fights with this champion, and here's another look at how they do it.
It was a bit of an awkward start as Broken Blade pretty much missed every single one of his objectives, skills rather, but then the ultimate comes through and it forces FlyQuest to split up. Busio Inspired have to take the long way around. Bwipo is left isolated on the front line, and so G2 throw everything they can into the tank. They're able to take him down, and then FlyQuest realize that they don't really have many tools to continue following up in the fight.
Yeah, you could tell what the call was for them to go try and go for Cassio, but they exposed themselves on such a wide area on that wall, that really big wall, and that is a perfect Maokai ult angle there from Skewmont.
And you can see here, both these junglers are big performers for their teams. Kill percentage, they're responsible for a lot of the action that happens here. Tier 1 games played, though, large difference. Inspired being around a lot longer than Skewmont is now. Looks like Caps has found plenty of damage into Bwipo as the Scion has to try to escape this Cassiopeia. Decimating smash right in turret range. Bwipo with the solo bolo on Caps. There's a snake in his boot and he's stomping.
Caps overextends, he goes underneath the tower, and the chain CC from Bwipo was beautiful. A great punish onto the mid laner of G2. Bwipo's got to feel good about that one.
Yeah, he has so much armor on him, and Caps is like, great, I can eat him up. Poison Fang, Poison Fang, Poison Fang with the Conqueror stacking, but just a little bit too far there, Vedius, right into tower range.
Right on the edge of the tower ranges. Masu now, there's no way out of that one. Beautiful angle from Labrov. The Varus might have range, but when the Alistar gets the perfect engage, there's no chance out. He has no possible escape. Nice pick up there. G2's at 2 kills.
As you can see now, the players starting to feel a lot more confident on the Rift. They're ready to start the skirmishing. G2 hold the lead in terms of dragons. The Herald is going to be spawning soon. We look back at this play.
I mean, we saw this whole thing start to finish. He knew there was still no flash on Caps, so goes under tower, draws him in, he hit the Q, and then goes right in for the ulti there. Let's see what the reaction is. Yeah.
Bwipo's like, what are you doing, man? And Caps is like, what am I doing, man?
That's the same reaction. But as you said, Flowers, Labrov really nicely there, right over from the Raptors. And the other person that didn't have flash, Masu, of course, targeted right there and taken down.
And critically, you can see right up at the very top, I know it's only 100 gold, but G2 bringing the gold back to even. Remember that just from passively farming, because they had the dominant bottom lane, it was FlyQuest who were ahead by about 1,000 earlier on. And now G2, after their successful plays around the Dragon, after they find that pick on Masu as well, they're feeling really good. As Broken Blade's in some danger, Inspire's ready to join here with a Grand Starfall. The Infernal Chain's gonna pull him back a little bit. Broken Blade doing a great job healing up. Decimating Smash finds another stun. Quad's ready, and Inspired gets the last hit. FlyQuest are going to tie up the kills 2-2, and they're moving on, looking to take the first turret of the game as well. They'll have no trouble doing it. They got 3 grubs. There's no plates. FlyQuest are going to take that one, and now the next neutral objective or the next kill will secure either one of those feats as well.
Exactly, and now that we are into the mid game, we're really going to get to see both these teams play to their compositions. Actually, sticking around a long time up there, Bwipo, they are going to send multiple people here. Can Labrov find?
All right, Bwipo. Let's see if he can try to get out of this one, but with no ulti, it's going to be tough. Bwipo trying to keep the escape going here, but just turns around, goes for the decimating smash onto Caps. He knows there's no way to escape this one. Labrov just providing enough CC there for Caps and Skewmon to be able to take down this Scion. So G2 now claims the feat of Warfare. FlyQuest claimed the feat of Turret. That means at 2-2, the next neutral objective determines who gets the enchanted boots. And with how close this first game has been, despite the fact that it was rather uneventful for the first 12, 13 minutes, those boots could be a big difference maker.
I will say, though, a lot of this is going FlyQuest's way simply because all of the damage that was done in the earlier matchup meant that the bot tower was already very weak. While so many resources were spent on the top side for G2, FlyQuest on their reset could start attacking the bot side. So they end up getting another tower advantage. Caps can't afford to stay on the top side to cross map. He needs to go back to base, spend his money, regroup as the Dragon is spawning soon.
Labrov doing a good job here, counter-engaging onto Busio as Skewmon is coming down to try to find the follow-up CC. FlyQuest also going to commit a teleport as the next Drake is about to spawn in under 10 seconds. Busio staying pretty healthy here. I do believe that was a McHale's that he used to get himself out of the CC, make sure he was able to escape before Skewmon showed up and provided follow-up lockdown. Quad making his way back out from the base, ready to join up with the rest of the team. The Rift Herald is going to be summoned up mid by FlyQuest, but G2 have already made their way onto the Dragon. Whippo's going in. Looks like FlyQuest wants to take some sort of a fight here, but the Drake is already going to be claimed by Skewmon. Broken Blade taking some damage here in the pit, but he's doing a beautiful job healing back up. Labrov now into the back line of FlyQuest. Masu's going to be punted forward. More damage over the FlyQuest AD carry, but he's getting away for now. Caps has to run. He tries to escape. Nobody's dead on either side here just yet, but a massive force shot coming out from Han Sama. G2 and FlyQuest both hurt, both leaving, but G2 got the big win. G2 is on Soul Point, and they've earned themselves the boots as well.
Right now, FlyQuest kind of harrying them on the outside too, but it's so dangerous. Masu's almost dead.
Masu's at 50 HP. Broken Blade's going over the wall. Masu gets a shield there from Busio as they all try to escape, and now Broken Blade's going to take a bunch of damage, locked up into the Rune Prison. A little bit more damage would have done it, but FlyQuest don't have it.
What is going on right now? Everyone is just so low, but no one is falling. FlyQuest got 2 towers in mid lane at the very start of the fight. Remember that the Herald was used to engage the fight. So with that out of the way, it then went back to mid lane, started sieging onto the towers, and while the scrap was happening in the river, FlyQuest committed Bwipo to securing another tower in mid. After that, FlyQuest walk away with a 1.5k gold lead.
Yeah, we started out with a fast and furious engage with Rift Herald plus Scion Ultimate as the engage for FlyQuest, and they go into the pit. In the end, though, like you mentioned, because G2 are able to get that dragon, it really does play into their strength. They're the one with the Casio, with a very strong front line. They want to be able to draw FlyQuest to them for the Dragon Soul fight so that FlyQuest can't utilize all of their globals as effectively.
I will say that it feels awkward for G2 simply because you look at the map and like a lot is just missing. You know, it's 4 towers to 1. So there's still a lot of things that G2 need to reclaim. They've played well around the neutrals, but the reality is that FlyQuest have been doing a really good job of punishing the decisions of G2 by getting other things elsewhere on the map and getting good map control overall.
And I want to see FlyQuest here in the next few minutes really utilize this Pantheon ult being up. It puts a lot of pressure on the decisions for G2 because FlyQuest will push it on these side lanes, and then as long as Inspired stays out of vision, you have to wonder where is it going to actually arrive and who can safely go pick up each wave.
I mean, look at the minimap right now. Quad with really good pressure on the bot side of the map. Bwipo doing the same thing with coverage of the rest of FlyQuest just hovering on the top side, knowing that Quad is very safe with the vision control that he has. So FlyQuest are doing exactly what they need to, playing two in the sides, forcing G2 to split up, and then ideally what they want to be using is that Pantheon ultimate. Find a pick, get a collapse, create that numbers advantage before G2 can react.
And we're starting to see next item power spikes coming online for both sides. Junglers, second item's fully completed. Mid laners, both of those items fully completed and fully evolved. Masu is about to have the Muramana here in just 12 more of those stacks out of the 360. Make it 6 in the middle of the sentence, but Hansama has completed Infinity Edge on the Jhin. Absolutely massive on that one. As Bwipo finds Caps here, jumps right back in for the ulti. There's the Inspired ult, and he knows this time. He's ready. He turns his back. He prevents being turned to stone, and they find the pick onto the G2 mid.
An excellent punish from FlyQuest. A nice little bait and trap set up by Bwipo to quickly follow up with the Pantheon ultimate. G2's now lost a lot of damage, and they're not in a position to be able to collapse on the Artican.
All right, FlyQuest taking this objective, and G2's not even going to approach. Hansama's nearby. He'll fire up a Deadly Flourish, I'm sure, to just try to see if he can get the 1 in 100 chance to maybe snipe it out. There should be no world. It got down to 26. If there was a Deadly Flourish there, that could have actually been the 1 in 100, but
good, we get
not
the blood
happening.
pumping. Little excitement there, huh? Even in the lulls. But yeah, it was really nice by Bwipo setting up in this side brush right here, kind of just hoping that this exact situation does happen, and Caps does kind of slither up right into the range of a Q there.
I mean, look at the experience in particular. Quad has a full level up over Caps. Inspired has a full level up over Skewmon. Bwipo is ahead in XP over Broken Blade. And this is just a testament to how well FlyQuest have been playing the side lanes, the way that they've been playing the map. But now, the real test. Dragon Soul spawns in 40 seconds, and this is the fight that FlyQuest need to be cautious of, because they have to fight this, and this is the position that G2 is the most favorable.
Yeah. It's been really cool, too, to see Bwipo versus Caps at a lot of these, you know, saying hi to his old Fnatic teammate. We'll see if it happens again, because he's in a brush again. He gets another Q to start it.
Yeah, double decimating smash from Bwipo. Labrava's already lost half HP on the Alistar, but he is not forced to use Unbreakable Will, so he can still play his role in the fight, at least for one rotation of spells. This has been G2's power point. You already said it, Vedius. This is where they have been playing their best. 10 seconds until the Drake spawns.
Casio here. Here comes Caps. He used the Hex Gates to get there. Labrav is pretty far in base.
Okay, Bwipo here on the very front line. Skewmon going to take a little bit of damage there from the Mantra Q of Busio. Quad looking for a bit more. Caps takes a chunk. FlyQuest with control over the river right now. Labrav off to the side. He has regenerated his HP, but now Skewmon is down to 1/3. Inspired makes the engage on the Caps, and the Cassiopeia is already down. G2 have lost their cannon, and they're about to lose the ship. FlyQuest go in with a massive realm warp, and they're ready to chase down the rest. Labrav is caught, and it's beef for dinner. FlyQuest are eating good.
I feel like Labrav was so late on his reset back to base that it allowed FlyQuest so much time here to get poke off early. They got early health leads, and then they jump again onto Caps. They take down the Cassiopeia, and they will put a stop to the dragon stacking.
I think Masu's positioning was fantastic in this play, and FlyQuest quite rightly are not going to slow down. They'll use the ultimate to quickly rotate over towards Baron. The death timers are long enough that they should have more than enough time to secure it. The TPs are coming through.
Okay, G2 bringing a TP in. They don't just want to allow this to happen, but it's Hans and Broken Blade. Labrav and Skewmon are alive. They're coming out of the base now, and they will be fast enough. Masu's only at half. Inspired's only at half. G2 are bringing in another teleport. They might go for something big, but Broken Blade walks right into the brush. He loses 3/4 of his HP instantly. instantly. Now Quad's got to be careful. Deadly Flourish binds him up. Quad takes a little bit more damage from the Noxious Blast, but G2 with control over the top side river, they're all right for now. No Baron.
There was a very real possibility of G2 starting the Baron themselves there. FlyQuest still hasn't reset after the last fight. Marsu now has had a chance to go back to base. He's used the Hex Gates to get back out onto the map, and G2 just kind of wasting a lot of time. This ultimately works out very nicely for FlyQuest, who now have firm control over this game.
Exactly. Now they feel so comfortable with this gold lead and the two outer towers still standing there. They have so many points that they can threaten on the map. Clear the vision around Baron, push out on the side waves, and then you force G2 into a position where they have to go into darkness to check any of these high value areas.
Yeah.
They do have a Maokai, so saplings help a lot there, but it's still going to be dangerous.
Okay, so checking in on the items, 4,500 gold. You're going to start to see noticeable differences here in the inventory. Extra BF sword there for Inspired. Quad making a move towards Broken Blade, who uses the World Ender for the move speed, and now he's ready to try to turn it around. Skewmon, ready to join. Mid and jungle versus mid and jungle, but it looks like FlyQuest don't want any more of this. They don't know what's around. The other thing I was going to get to, the most important part of this gold lead, is there's 2.5 items for Quad. The half is a Seeker's Arm Guard, unbroken, ready to be spent. Such a powerful active. The Mikhail's up and available here for Busio as well. Another clutch opportunity, but on the G2 side, it's Rylai's completed for Caps. If he can start DPSing somebody and FlyQuest can't just turn around and force him back, the kill is guaranteed.
Labrov face checking in a very dangerous part of the map that does not belong to him.
Yeah, looks like he's going to be met with the decimating smash just immediately as Busio and Whippo continue going forward. Masu shooting off another rain of arrows. Labrov, however, saves his ulti. That's the important part here. If he can go back and heal, he'll still be fully effective.
Whippo has found so much value camping in these brush with Sion, finding members, checking into them. And a lot is because now, FlyQuest keep on pushing up. As they're starting Baron right now, they've got priority in all these lanes, and it kind of closes out. G2 now trying to look for the opportunity to answer.
Inspired also with a Guardian Angel. So it's Seekers on Quad, Guardian Angel on Inspired. Very big, very powerful items for a single fight on the side of FlyQuest. Broken Blade navigating himself out of what could have been a very, very precarious situation as FlyQuest now take control back over the mid lane, but they've been forced off of the Baron. Broken Blade still behind enemy lines here, going to use the Hex Gate to try to escape. Gets back onto his own half of the map. Gold lead still at about 4,000, but FlyQuest haven't built that any further. We do have the next Drake spawning in less than 2 minutes, and it's still soul point for G2. All they need is if they find one pick, one moment to lock in that soul, the value of it pretty much evaporates the gold lead that FlyQuest has built.
I feel like FlyQuest's control over the map, though, is I call it cautious proactivity, where they're not afraid to throw out things like the ultimate, to use either Ryze's ultimate or the Pantheon ultimate, just to see how G2 reacts. And Quad now at a position.
Yeah, Quad is in some serious danger. Labrov ready to set it up and catch the Ryze immediately into the petrifying gaze. Quad using his arm guard for a whole lot of nothing. It's a kill plus a wasted active as FlyQuest had nobody around in time to try to back him up. G2 with a huge pick on the FlyQuest mid laner, now trying to make an approach towards the Baron as Busio and Masu try to pelt them with skill shots on their approach. Whippo and Inspired making their way up, but keep your eyes on Broken Blade. He's coming around from the side, but Inspired's ready to intercept him. Busio trying to get away. He's caught at the very edge of the Nature's Grasp. Broken Blade is low, but it does not matter. He's Aatrox. He's going to heal right. Back up. Caps low, but not in that much danger. Seraph's giving him the shield, keeping him alive. Masu still firing. Whippo and Inspired trying to help. It's a 5v3. G2 make their way onto the Baron, and FlyQuest wants to step up to try to stop it. Masu's the only damage really remaining. Inspired tries to go in, but the Miasma's already ready to try to take care of him. Inspired throwing up the shield. Whippo and Masu stuck in the pit looking to deal with the Baron. Inspired going right back in, but he's already going to be knocked into the Guardian Angel. It's stolen away by Masu! 2v5 now. FlyQuest trying to fight back. Broken Blade wants to get away. Inspired back to life for the Guardian Angel. FlyQuest with the miracle resist at the Baron pit.
3v5 in the Baron pit. The Canadian prodigy, Masu. They fight them out of the pit. They focus on the Maokai. They force Skewmon over the wall, and they take it themselves.
comes Vedius!
There was no smite in the pit. Keep your eyes on Masu because he's doing so much damage in the fight. Staying well away from the threats, trying to remove the smite on the side of G2, forcing Skirmish to flash over the wall. And now the smite is gone. Even though Inspired loses his life, he has the GA. And now it's a race to try and last hit the Baron.
He has the Q. They pop it there. Really big props to Inspired. Inspired sacrificed his life to ult. Well, it was up there.
Whiplow's headset.
Inspired, Pantheon ults, he draws all those DPS members of G2 away from the Baron pit, and then he put up the Pantheon immunity, so nicely done from him, plus the GA after that. He actually sacrifices his GA to open the opportunity so that Bwipo and Masu can then turn on the Baron after forcing the Maokai over the edge. Flowers, this is insanity.
The insanity is on the graph. 3 players at about 8,000 damage in the last fight as G2 try to at least secure their own red buff before they're forced out of their jungle. Skumon wants to hang around for it, but Inspired and the rest of FlyQuest have different ideas. They steal away the team-wide red. They've got the 6,000 gold lead. In the aftermath of the Baron play, because G2 had no presence on the map anymore, FlyQuest stopped their second potential sole attempt on G2 in the aftermath. And now Inspired's going in, looking for potentially another pick. Broken Blade, however, with the World Ender, it's a lot of extra move speed, and it gets him away to safety.
G2 are running into a very serious range problem where Masu's positioning is so good that it's very difficult for G2 to really play on the objectives anymore or play around them. In the early game, we saw G2 leveraging the Maokai ultimate to try and force FlyQuest into these very difficult fights. But now FlyQuest are just leveraging the fact that they have Busio and Masu on these hyper poke champions, and they are just melting through whatever target they can hit on G2.
And he's got the Axiom Arc as well for more ultimates to just keep throwing it out, looking for more, but Labrav is looking.
Masu getting caught. This is massive engage coming out from G2, but Caps takes a lot of damage before Masu dies. Whipwoo's made his way onto the G2 mid laner. Labrav and Caps are both low, but Caps still standing for now. Finally going to be brought down. Busio taking the kill credits as Labrav wants to use the Crouch as an escape mechanism, but it will not work. FlyQuest make it a 2-for-1. They've lost Masu, but they still have quad for the damage, and Inspired and Bwipo are a hell of a front line. The tier 2 turret here on the top side will fall as FlyQuest continue their push. The Baron may have worn away, but they've got a full wave, and they've still got all 3 Void Grubs to assist with the pushing. G2 scrambling to defend here in a 3v4. Broken Blade and Hans trying to keep them away, but they just don't have the damage. FlyQuest forces their way into the top lane. They'll take out the tier 3, but they'll leave the inhibitor standing. They're trying to cover for one another as they make their retreat, make sure nobody gets caught, nobody gets left behind. FlyQuest take tier 3 and exfiltrate.
Bwipo is just so damn tanky. You'll notice that even though they ended up losing Masu, it really doesn't matter. Quad is still free hitting onto multiple members doing a huge amount of damage. Then the arrival of Bwipo just completely changes the landscape of the fight. It's a good ultimate from Caps, but there's nothing left that he can do because Bwipo is isolating him. Labrav is forced to retreat, and even though Hansam arrives, he recognizes that as Jhin, there's nothing that he can do against this Scion.
That train has had such an impact in this game. You know, his brush camps, finding so many plays, you know, Caps drawing him under that turret and the original one, but he is really the crux of the front line here, the team fight. And now, as we move forward, people are still going to keep thinking about that Baron video. Let's be honest. The 3 members that were up there, Inspired, Bwipo, and Masu, all so much credit there because on the stage when all this pressure is on, they were so focused. And Inspired does get a lot of credit for being the big shot caller on this team and him kind of flying in and starting out that play. We'll see where it goes here from here, though. Even with this large gold lead, it does feel very comfortable for FlyQuest, but G2 did have a comeback opportunity previously.
And I like how you mentioned the large gold lead, because that gold lead, about 6,500. 4,000 is Inspired on the Pantheon. Absolute monster. Death's Dance now completed alongside that Guardian Angel. This makes him so hard to kill. There are 35 seconds on the clock until that next Drake spawns. The previous 2, FlyQuest felt the pressure of what if G2 goes for the soul? That's going to be a massive turnaround point. This time around, FlyQuest have total control over this bottom river area. The Baron is not going to spawn until a 20-second delay after the Dragon, so there's no chance for G2 to try to sneak that has the response. FlyQuest are going to maintain control over this river, but it looks like the response from G2. Send Caps top, try to see if you can grab a turret, but Inspired seems wise to it.
Yeah, he's wise, all right.
Immediately finds some good damage there on the Caps. Just chunks the Cassiopeia to half effortlessly. Does take about a third of his own HP in retaliation. Does continue to bleed after that. Remember the side effect of the Death's Dance. Whippo trying to look for an angle here. Charges in after Lebrov. The Alistar is going to be the target. Whippo's here with the front line, but now it's Inspired into the back line. Hansama with a flash away. Inspired looking to put the pressure on. Throws up the shield. Staying alive for now. Still has Guardian Angel. Doesn't have to spend it. Caps makes his way into the fight with the use of the teleport. G2 fighting back. Skewmond looking for the back line of FlyQuest. Whippo's here in the front, but he's tanking a lot of damage. Skewmond putting the pressure on, but the firepower from FlyQuest is massive. Skewmond barely staying alive. The curtain call is open, but the show does not go on. FlyQuest continuing to retreat. Broken Blade wants the Q2, but he won't hit the sweet spot. FlyQuest don't lose anybody. G2 don't lose anybody, but it's still FlyQuest with control over the Dragon.
Yeah, they're resetting. Inspired's coming right back out now, so they should be able to get this Dragon as well. Not open it up for a possible G2 soul, but they're going to move for Baron.
Baron, yeah, like, Quad hasn't had a chance to reset. He doesn't have his TP available either. The fact that G2's forcing it, they know that they can do this super fast thanks to the Cassio.
Okay, Broken Blade has made his TP in. Whippo's already charging forward here with the ulti. The Baron down to about half HP. FlyQuest coming around. Remember, Inspired still has the Guardian Angel. Whippo here with the front. Nice punt away coming out from Lebrov. G2 still going in, looking to take the Baron. It's secured by Skewmond. G2's going to try to fight their way out now as Skewmond is locked up in the room prison. And FlyQuest bursts him down. Lebrov has the unbreakable will, but FlyQuest will break him anyway. FlyQuest now with a 5v3. G2's got the Baron, but you know FlyQuest is going to look for something in the base.
I mean, G2 do deny the objective, but it is FlyQuest that have the numbers advantage. They've been winning out every single one of these fights. And while the last one was very close and all was really dying, a lot of summoner spells were used. Flash and Cleanse, unavailable for Hansama. While the Flash is up for Caps, I feel like FlyQuest don't have to hesitate.
Nope, they won't. As soon as you say it, Benny, Caps is already under the pressure from Inspired. Another Grand Starfall makes its entry. Another death for the Cassiopeia. FlyQuest will claim the mid lane inhibitor as Hans opens up the curtain call. He'll try to clear the wave a little bit with it, but Inspired doesn't care. FlyQuest in a 5v2. Hans and Broken Blade, nowhere to go. FlyQuest now onto the Nexus itself as Hans is forced back into the fountain, and FlyQuest take game one.
Insane performance from Inspired, the MVP of the league, the MVP of the finals in North America. What a